The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the Bliss Business Podcast, where we explore how to build love into scalable systems. I'm Steven Zakash here again with Mike Lusky and Tulio Siragusa. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey, Steven. Good to see you.
Yeah, so let's get to it.
This is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we want to talk about marketing today, right? And as a marketing agency with aiCMO.io, we really get to witness almost firsthand this really difficult truth that it really feels like marketing is broken today. I love to use the analogy of marketing just is almost like this blaring horn in all of our ears, and we almost have that reaction of just wanting to push away. And unfortunately, it's doing the opposite of what it's trying to do. Rather than connect, it's disconnecting.
Yeah. Mike, you remind me of I grew up in a small town in southern Italy, and there are guys who would go around with these little Vespas, like these tri-Vespas with the fruits and vegetables in the back, and they had this megaphone, and they would be like, "We got fresh fruit," in Italian, fresh fruit, bananas, and that was marketing. And to this day, in those little towns, they still do that.
I think now too, though, the stage of marketing though is like 100 of those guys in Vespas all yelling right now. So, people are being bombarded with messages and ads.
It worked because it was only one guy doing that, not like 20 others doing it at the same time. Could you imagine at the same time? Yeah. Then that's marketing today.
And so
it's the resonating that's really missing, right?
Yeah. Because like traditional, like those guys, they're all thinking about the transaction, right? Not resonating with people, and that's what marketing is like today. A bunch of people with the megaphones, and it's built on focusing on the transactions, not emotions, and it focuses on selling, not connecting. It's about pushing products, not building relationships, right?
Yeah, 100%. So really what we're going to talk about today, I love the thought of like, tell your audience what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. So what we're going to cover today in this episode is really trying to shed a spotlight on this problem, this breakdown that's happening, why marketing is failing, why that emotional connection just seems to be missing, and really how empathetic storytelling or empathy-driven storytelling can change all of this. So yeah, let's jump into it.
Yeah, and again, it's funny. I see again and again this, right? Marketing has become a race for attention instead of a vehicle for meaning. It's this idea that we just mentioned about the person on the megaphone, but hundreds of them doing it at the same time. And it's the loudest one who thinks they're going to get the attention, right? So the irony is that people don't want more noise. They want to feel seen. They want to feel validated. And empathy really isn't the trend. It's actually what business has been missing all along. And in marketing, it's really missing more than ever.
Yeah. So let's talk about why it's kind of broken. So it's right now, I think marketing, it's about how many, for most people, it's about how many eyeballs you can capture, how many clicks you can get, how many conversions you can squeeze out. But attention like this doesn't mean connection, right? And without connection, I think marketing really does feel hollow. It feels kind of manipulative and feels very empty.
Yeah, and that's why everyone's sort of tuning out to it, right? I mean, you think about some of the most famous songs out there, like a love song, or why is it so successful? Because it touched you, right? You'll remember the words, it'll create a feeling. And everyone's just not doing that with marketing. They're turning it off. We've got different kinds of ad blockers. We even, produce what we call today banner blindness. And so it's actually quite widely accepted that today, someone will see anywhere from, 4,000 to 10,000 messages. And there was actually a little study, because I looked into this a little bit further, because that stat really shocked me. And on average, a person will only really recognize anywhere from 79 to the low 90s of message. Just imagine, right? So many messages in one day. you're just going to scroll and just keep moving through.
Yeah, that's crazy. I got to tell you, I've spent, as you guys know, decades working with companies trying to grow, scale, and let's call it dominate markets or become market leaders. And what I've seen and what I've learned is that growth without connection is very fragile. In fact, you can have all the metrics pointing up, but if there's no emotional thread tying your brand to people's lives, it's just noise. And this doesn't just apply on a B2C basis, it's even on a business to business basis too. And so really empathy, for many years, it was considered fluff, but it isn't. It's infrastructure. And I really want to plant the seed of thinking it as infrastructure, because once you look at it as infrastructure, it becomes strategic and important and worthwhile learning more about it and investing energy into it. And it's really the thing that turns short-term success into long-term significance. And that's the shift we're talking about here. It's not just about reaching people. It's about honoring them and understanding them and making space for them in your story. And that's the critical thing, the critical path to success here.
And Tulio, I was going to say, one thing that you've always coached us on is people want to be part of something bigger than themselves, right? So if we're a brand or a company, they're craving something that needs to be, that's real. And as well, it has to stand for something. So yeah, to your point there about it can't just be, fluffy.
Yeah, it's not just about reaching people, it's about moving people, right? So traditional marketing, we're asking like, how do we sell? But the real question is, how do we make people feel? Because feelings are what drive action. Emotion is what drives loyalty.
Yeah, and there is a cost to this disconnection, right? It's not just the cost of the ad budgets, but the cost of getting it wrong. Here in North America alone, ad blockers have resulted in $24 billion in lost revenue in 2024. And that was actually found in a $24 billion in lost revenue. So when you don't connect emotionally, people don't care. They don't stay loyal. They'll move on to something else. And then they also don't remember the brand, right? And the data clearly backs this up.
Yeah, and here there's this one stat that we always come back to a lot, is that creating an emotional connection with your audience has a 306% higher lifetime value compared to just satisfying your customers, right? So emotional connection, it's not just a nice to have, it's a business advantage.
And it goes deeper than just marketing. This is really about the alignment within an organization, the purpose of the company, the leadership of a company. In fact, in coaching leaders in my advisory role, I've always asked, are you solving for outcomes, i.e., are you just trying to solve a transactional requirement, or are you solving for people? Meaning, are you meeting the intention of what the person needs, not just the transaction, the meaning behind why they're doing it, the meaning behind why they're buying it? And because of this disconnection, it doesn't just cost you revenue, it costs you trust. So resonance, I've often say it's the new currency, but it's not just about revenue, it's trust, and trust eventually costs you revenue. So once you lose that, you're kind of done. You're no longer in business when you lose that trust. So you're just shouting into the void at that point. So it's so critically important to understand that you're solving for people, not transactions.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really well put to it. And, in some parts, companies are getting some of this right. They're looking at things like customer satisfaction scores, but it's really deeper than that. It's about that emotional connections. While a satisfied customer, they're not necessarily a loyal customer yet, someone who is going to advocate for you. Satisfied customers, they might leave as soon as, there's another option. But really that emotionally connected customer stays. They become ambassadors of your brand, right? They will advocate for you or even be your evangelists. And they do the marketing for you.
Yeah, right. And brands are spending millions of dollars trying to get our attention, but they're missing out on that power of resonance. So they're focused on the transactions instead of building relationships that last. So we've got some examples here. I think, Mike, can you show us an example of some marketing that resonates so that people kind of get an idea of what we're talking about?
Yeah, Steve, let's take a look at one of those examples. In fact, Tuli, would you mind queuing that up for us?
Absolutely.
2 tickets, $28. 2 hot dogs, 2 popcorns, and 2 sodas, $18. 1 autographed baseball, $45. Real conversation with 11-year-old son, priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. Accepted all over, even Major League ballparks.
I mean, just so touching, right? You can just see how a message and a commercial like that creates the emotion and builds that connection. And congratulations really to MasterCard. In fact, just recently, they hit the 25-year anniversary of that campaign. So talk about a message that has had staying power, right?
I mean, just think, what you're going to remember about that commercial is that the product was a way to create connection with probably the most important connection you want to have, your children, right? So it's the feeling that it invokes. Like, everybody wants that. What parent doesn't want that, right? So I associate using that product with that feeling. And that's really an example of the brands that are winning today. They're not the loudest brands. They're the ones that listen the best, and they create feelings, and those connection that they create isn't the byproduct. It's the outcome of being intentional in connecting emotionally with their customers. So when you lead with empathy, which is really what this example is about, you stop marketing at people and you start building with them that's on things that are meaningful to them. And what a beautiful example. Everything there is so meaningful to any one of us. We all want to have a good relationship with our kids. We want to have fun with our kids. We want to be able to have open conversation. And so those things are so meaningful. It leaves you with this feeling of using a product that creates meaning in my life.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it a few times where it's how it makes you feel, right? And we can all feel that in that commercial. That's the difference there. It's so why does emotional connection matter so much? It's, I think, partially because humans are wired for stories, right? We don't remember facts. I couldn't tell you the price of the they were just quoting here in the commercials on a bunch of stuff. But I remember how I felt watching that whole thing, right? And we remember experiences. We remember the stories that resonate with, who we are or who we want to become.
Yeah, and that's exactly why that emotional form of marketing outperforms traditional forms, right? It moves people from just sort of this passive state into something that they become passionate ambassadors about. They'll really get behind something. It turns those customers into communities, both locally and even across social channels, right? People will really get behind the things that they believe in and want to stand for. And then it transforms brands from just being a product to really being a movement.
Yeah, and I really do. I say this a lot. I think this is kind of the holy grail of marketing, is kind of when you can get to this place with it. So here's another stat. Ads that generate emotional responses see a 23% increase in sales compared to ads that focus on logic or product features, right? It's not about selling. It's about feeling. It's about connecting.
And the way that you do it, quite simply, empathy and storytelling, right? When you understand your audience so deeply, what they're thinking, feeling, right? What is in their minds, what they're hearing, when you really listen rather than just be speaking, when you tell stories that resonate with their values, their aspirations, even highlighting maybe the struggles that they're going through, that's when, marketing changes and starts to really develop real meaning.
Yeah, so here's the truth. Marketing isn't broken because people are tired of buying. Marketing is broken because people are tired of being sold to. They don't want to be targeted. They want to be moved. They want to feel something that's real.
And that's what we'd love to call the empathy gap, right? The reason that most of these companies and brands are failing is because of this gap. It doesn't have to be that way. Without a doubt, there is a bridge to doing this. You can create emotional connection that really will resonate. You can build a movement instead of just markets or pitching product, and you can inspire loyalty, not just transactions.
So what does this look like in practice? How do we go from just getting in front of people to moving them, to inspiring them, and to building something they truly want to be a part of?
Yeah, we'll break that down. In fact, in an upcoming workshop, we're going to get right into this, where we'll go beyond just the theory that we've discussed today and really show you how businesses are using emotion and purpose to transform their marketing strategies.
Yep. And we'll even show you examples that'll make you stop and say, wow, that's how it's done. So stay tuned.
Yep. If you'd like to sign up for that workshop, real simply, the URL, you can also find it here in the description and in the post, but it's aicmo.io/workshop. That's aicmo.io/workshop. Hope to see you there.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's stop treating customers like data points. They're not data points. They're humans, human beings. That's how we close that empathy gap. That's how we build love into scale system. That really is the future, and it can start right now.
Yep. Thanks for joining us today. If this message of this episode resonated with you, share this with a business leader who needs to hear it. Until next time, keep building love into scalable systems, because that's how we close the empathy gap. That's how we create movements. That's how we change things for the better.